What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Eluda Racing. So as you can see by the title of this video, today what we're going to be doing for the first, I guess you could call it an improvement or upgrade on our golf cart project, is we're going to be installing a voltage meter or charge indicator, which I think is actually something that I don't know why a lot of the golf carts don't come with these standard, but you know, at the end of the day, when you've got a golf cart, an electric golf cart, and you're out driving around and stuff like that, it's important to have a meter because you know how much juice you've got left in your batteries. So, and it's also helpful for maintenance and just the overall life and condition of the batteries. So that's what I'm going to be doing first. If I'm going to be having my family and friends and wife and daughter out driving the golf cart, I want to make sure that they know how much power they got left so they can get back home without any issues. So I went online, I went on eBay, and I got this gauge, part number RL-B1003. This is a 48 volt battery indicator, depending on what you have. 36, 48, some are even 72 volt. You're going to need to make sure you get the proper indicator for your cart. So this is the one that I got. I think I paid a little over $12. I will link this indicator in the information below so you know which one I used. But yeah, this is the one we're going to be installing, and we're going to real quick go over all the things that you need in order to do this properly and without having a lot of starting and stopping and whatnot. So yeah, you're going to need your gauge, obviously, your indicator. This right here is a stencil I had to make up. When I bought this, it actually came with a little cardboard surround that held the indicator in place that acted as a stencil. Me being the way I am, I ripped the box open and looked at it and threw that in the garbage right away, not realizing that that was a stencil. So I had to take an old business card and kind of grafted it off, gridded it off, and I made me a new stencil that I can use as a way to scribe a line to make the opening, because this obviously is a flush mount, so it needs to, or a through mount, it actually goes into the plastic, it doesn't sit on top of it. So we need to actually cut a hole in our dash and mount that. So that's what the stencil's for. You're obviously going to need some good wire. If you've watched any of my old videos, you know I'm a big fan of the low voltage underground lighting and irrigation line. This wire is great. It's rated for, it's like a marine grade wire at a fraction of the cost. It can be submerged in water, mud, you name it, and this stuff it's rated for that, so it's perfect for any type of outdoor, ATVs, UTVs, boats, golf carts, you name it. Anything that's going to be subjected to the elements, I highly recommend this. And it's cheap. I mean, I bought this big 50-foot roll, and it was only a few dollars. So it's really, really good wire, and it's extremely cheap. So that's you're going to need some good high-grade wire. You're going to need some female push-on connectors. 2 of those. You're going to need 2 ring terminals, some heat shrink tubing. You're going to need a T15 Torx screwdriver, wire crimpers, wire strippers, and then I use a little butane torch for my heat shrink. You can also use a heat gun, but the torches work a lot faster. Or if you don't have anything like this, you can use a cigarette lighter. I mean, or not cigarette lighter, just a lighter. And whatever you got, use what you have. This is just the stuff that I have and what I recommend. Now that we've went over all of the things to do the job, I'm going to show you where I'm going to put this on my particular golf cart and where I recommend you put it on yours. Now this tutorial can work with pretty much any golf cart. Mine happens to be a Yamaha, but I mean, the steps and what I'm doing can pretty much work for any golf cart. So on the Yamaha, the G29 or the Drive, like I have, you know, you've got your dashboard, you've got your key, you've got this is your switch for forward or reverse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right here. There's a nice little spot right here. It'll fit perfect right there. This kind of acts as like a little dashboard anyway, so that will go real good there. To get access to this, you're going to have to pull your cup holder off. And this right here is the only screw that's on. And then that is the T15, the Torx that I told you that you're going to need. Now yours might be a Phillips screw, yours might be an Allen screw, whatever it might be. On this particular model, that's a T15 Torx, and that's what is required. So that's the first thing we're going to have to do, is we're going to have to remove that screw. This whole thing pops off, and then that will give us access to the inside, and it'll give us access to where we're going to put our template and do our hole and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get set up, and we'll start tearing this apart. Alright, so we got the Torx wrench, or Torx driver, and we're going to go ahead and pull that cover off. I also went ahead and hooked up my Matco light, just give a little bit better light. That was another thing I forgot. You know, you should probably get a light to give you a little bit of, you know, make it a little bit easier to work on. And if you know me, you know I like my Matco lights. One thing, if I have anything negative to say about Matco tools, is this particular light. I paid a lot of money for this light. When it works great. But one thing that I found that this light does not do is it does not hold a charge compared to all of my other Matco lights, my cordless lights. This one, if I charge it and I don't use it for a month, it's dead every time I go to grab it. So that would be one thing that I would say negative about their tools, is they need to come up with a little bit better quality of battery. This light is UHWLRC, and a little fun fact, if you don't know what that part number means, that stands for Underhood Work Light Rechargeable. So that is what that model number is. But this is a great light. I love it. I use it all the time. I use it on my Lightning. I use it just on all my projects. I'm always using this thing. So these are really nice, and the fact that it's rechargeable, or you can plug it in, is a nice thing, you know, to where you're not using that battery all the time and relying on that battery, because it's gonna let you down at some point if you use that all the time. But anyway, let's go ahead and start pulling this cover off. Like I said, this is a T15 Torx. We've got the one screw here in the front. We're gonna go ahead and pull this off. Now, like I said, yours could be Torx, it could be Allen, it could be a Phillips, who knows. I just usually take my stuff off, put it over off to the side. That's all it holds this on. This thing just snaps up, comes right off just like that. Doesn't get any easier than that. And now, if you remember on my intro video, as far as for this project, I showed you I'm going with the radio, and that cup holder is going to be discarded, and then that new one takes place of that. So you're going to go from having this to having the radio and still have the two cup holders and all that. So it's going to be a pretty sweet upgrade. Now, by taking that off, now we access the inside of the control panel. You can see that you got tons of room in here. You've got your direction switch, you know, for forward and reverse, which is right here. That's what these wires are for. You've got this wire loom, the red wires, which is your keyed switch, and then you've got plenty of room right there, which is where we're going to scribe our line, and that's where we're going to put the battery indicator. So that's right there is where we're going to put that, and that will fit nice right there. It'll kind of keep, it'll have a factory appearance, and you know, it doesn't need to be, you know, some people will say you could put it here, which would be fine. It's personal preference. But I mean, for future things, like if I add lights or I add other things, that's where those are going to go. I would rather have an access here to put rocker switches if I do aftermarket lights, which I'm doing. I showed you the headlight taillight kit, so I'm going to want to put my lights there. I plan on doing the stereo, so if I have any switches for that, if I do any other things, you know, under body lights, whatever, you know, you never know what you're going to do down the road. So rather than putting a charge indicator right here in the middle and using that up, I would rather utilize my battery indicator will go here, and then I can save this for a later date for other improvements. So now let's take it away from the cart for now and go back over to the bench, and we're going to start laying out the switch, the wiring harness, and everything like that. Now the way I'm going to do this, just to let you guys know, there's a lot of debate on this. Some people put these on a key, some people hardwire them right to the batteries, and just the gauge is on all the time. That's the way I'm going to do that. I look at it like this: if you have a cart that you're not using on a daily basis and it does a lot of sitting, the last thing you're going to remember to do is once in a month or once every so often go in your garage, turn your key on, and check and see where your batteries are at on your golf cart. If it's here and it's illuminated all the time, you know when those batteries are getting discharged and you need to put it on the charger to bring them back up. That that indicator draws no power. It's LEDs, and I mean you could leave it plugged in and not charged for years before that thing would deplete those batteries. They're going to discharge on their own from the draw of everything else on the cart before that indicator does anything to these batteries. So keep that in mind, and that's the way I'm going to go. I'm going to go right there, and I'm going to put it on that, and it's just going to be hardwired right to the battery pack, so I know what my battery status is at all times. Alright, so now we're going to start doing the harness for this. And basically what I like to do is I get all my fittings and stuff out like I had mentioned before. In previous videos I've mentioned the fact that I like using the underground low voltage wire. I think for the money and basically the way this stuff is, and this is a low dollar alternative to a marine grade wire. This wire can be left in direct sunlight, submerged underwater, mud, you name it. This stuff is highly resistant to the elements, and I like using this for anything as far as stereo stuff, lighting, you name it, on boats, RVs, UTVs, ATVs, golf carts, you name it. This stuff works great. And what I normally do when I work with this wire is, if you notice this wire, being that it's all black, there's not really an easy way to differentiate between one or the other. A lot of people don't notice, but one side of this wire has all of the specifications of the wire, the other side is plain. So normally what I like to do is the side that has all the specifications I'll use as my positive. The plain side will become the negative. And as a secondary way, because you at home, you might do it a different way. You might like using the spec side as the negative and the plain as the positive. So what I do to set that aside to make it more, I guess, idiot proof, or a little bit more easy for everybody to understand, my logic is I will always use color coded heat shrink to help set the two sides apart. So that way, if somebody else works on this, if I sell this golf cart years later, whatever it may be, this guy knows, 12 is the universal, or red is the universal for positive, black is negative as far as for automotive color coding for 12 volt systems. That's the way it's done. Red is positive, black is negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some heat shrink on this side, which will help separate the two, and we'll know down the road. And I'm going to do this on both ends, so then that way if this harness ever becomes damaged, or I take it off, or I have to replace the meter, whatever it might be, years from now this writing might wear off and it would be hard to know which is which without pulling out a meter and getting into it. By doing it this way, you're able to know right away, red is positive, okay, so we know where we're going. So with all that being said, what we're going to do now is we're going to prep this side, and I'm going to do the ring terminal side first. And the reason I'm doing this is because what I want to do is, rather than just guess how much wire I need, cutting it and putting it all together, and then possibly either being a little bit too short or having a bunch of excess, I want to minimize my waste of the wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep the terminal side, I'm going to install it on the cart, and then I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to cut it to length at the meter, or at the gauge. And then that way what you do by doing that is you save yourself wire at the end of the day. You're not having a bunch of extra, and you're not wasting it. Or I've had it happen the other way, where I thought I needed 6 foot of something and I ended up needing 7.5 feet. Went through the trouble to make a harness and it'd be too short, and then basically wasted all that and had to start over from scratch. So there's a lot of pluses and minuses to kind of laying it out this way. So if you notice, I put the red on there first because if we put this terminal on and crimp that down, a lot of times the heat shrink will not slide over the ring terminal portion, and you end up getting pissed because now you got to cut it off and you got to redo it. So always remember, put your heat shrink on first, then do your terminal. And like I said, I like to strip that back a little over 1/4 inch, just so you have a little bit of that wire coming through the connector, because that way you have a little bit more meat there. When you crimp it down, it doesn't want to be so likely to pull out. So there, we go ahead, we crimp that on. Nice connection. You're going to want to, then you slide this over, and then there you go. We're going to use our torch, and we're going to shrink this down. Now, one of the drawbacks on using the torch is you're dealing with fire and you're actually melting it quite a bit, and it does discolor it a little bit, but it's a lot faster than the heat gun, and you know, I'm not really worried about the aesthetics overall on this. It's just more of a way to indicate that this is the positive side of this harness. So, and then on this side, even though it's black, I still like using the heat shrink because of the benefits of the sealing of the terminal. So it's there for a reason too. It's not just about the color coding aspect, because you want to minimize the elements from getting in this connection as much as possible. So we got that on there. Slide the heat shrink up. Like I said, you can use a lighter, you could use a heat gun, you can use whatever. I just use this because this is what I have. Alright, now we need to get it to light. I think my gas is finally running out, so luckily we got it back up. When you heat shrink, you always want to make sure you twist it too. You don't want to try to get all the heat on one side. You want to go on a 360-degree rotation of that, and you want to work it around and go slow. Because what will happen is if you try to just heat just one side and get it to shrink all the way up, you're going to burn through this side before the opposite side shrinks. So put your heat on there, and you're going to want to kind of move it back and forth, and you're going to draw that in, and this stuff will draw in nice and tight, and you know, it's doing its job. So, and that also acts as a strain relief too. So it's another thing. It has multiple benefits by putting it on there. So now we know this is positive, this is negative. What we're going to do is we're going to take this over. We're going to not necessarily hook it up to the batteries, but we're going to separate this. We're going to run it underneath the seat, and then we're going to run it up to the control panel area. So this is the first step of the harness that we're doing on this. Alright, so we went ahead and I got the wiring ran from up front, underneath, and to the batteries. And when you're doing this on your cart, you're going to have a couple options. I chose to go underneath. There's a channel where I ran the wire, and I'm going to secure it with zip ties to another harness that's there, so it was real easy. You also can pull up your floor mat and you can run it underneath the floor mat. Downside of doing it underneath the floor mat is over time people stepping on it and stuff like that and putting weight, that cord or that harness could potentially rub through from the friction of that thing being stepped on and squished. So I would not use that method unless there's a channel that you can run it to where it doesn't get subjected to that. So I go underneath, secure it nice and tight up into the underside of the cart, and it'll be safe there. It won't get snagged on anything if I go off-roading or whatever it might be. So now the first thing what we're going to do is, normally what I do is we need to lay out the wiring inside here on the battery packs, and then we need to work our way to the gauge. That way we know how much cord we need and where to cut it without having a lot of excess like we talked about before. So now, to the average person that doesn't know, we've got 4 batteries here. These are 12 volt batteries, so 12 times 4 is 48. That's how we come up with the 48 volts. We need to make sure that we take a reading for the 48 volts for the gauge to work properly. So in order to do that, we've got 4 12 volt batteries. Average person's going to say, well, where do I hook it up? Do I just hook it up to these two, or where do I go? No, what we have here is we have 4 12 volt batteries in series with one another. Like I said, 12 times 4 is 48, so you've got 12, 24, 36, 48. And what they do is they take, you've got a positive and then you've got a negative. This negative goes to this positive, and then it goes in a daisy chain down that's in series, and that's how you come with your 48 volts. In order for our gauge to work and take a proper reading, we need to go to the positive side, which is the first here, and we need to go to the negative of the last battery. That's how we're going to get 48 volts, and that's how the gauge is going to read properly. So what I do, ran the wire up through. This wire is nice because with it being, you can split this and you can make this into a single wire. So what I'm going to do, and what I suggest, is these Trojan batteries have these lift points right here. I'm going to run the cable along the side, and I'm going to zip tie it to a few of these lift points, and that's going to keep that cable nice and secure. It won't drop down and won't rub on anything. If you have to work on anything, add water, whatever it might be, battery maintenance, that cable is going to be out of the way, just like these primary cables are. So we're going to do our positive to our positive. We've got our red. Now I'm not going to hook these up yet because obviously we've still got a lot more wiring to do. We've got to cut it and all that stuff, so we don't want a live wire, or some people refer to it as hot because it has power going through it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to kind of give myself a little bit of extra beyond here, and then I'm going to start working my way back with the zip ties. I'm going to put one here, I'll jump over to there, and then I'll stop, and I'm going to rinse and repeat, and I'm going to do that over there on the negative side. And then from there we'll pull the slack out, and then we'll make our final cut up front. Alright, so we have the cable ran, or the harness ran, and that's all secured to the batteries like I had mentioned. And basically, like I said, what I did was I used these lift points like right here, and I just zip tied it to there, did it there. I left extra for the cable for the harness to be able to be hooked up, and got a little bit of slack, and I did the same on both sides. You can actually see how I ran the zip ties a little bit on this side, a little bit better. And I left a little extra, and I do that for multiple reasons. One, for ease of installation. If you need to disconnect the batteries or whatever, we've got extra there so it can be pushed out of the way. If the harness ever becomes damaged or whatever, we can cut that back and we can install a new ring terminal on there without any problems. So there's a lot of reasons for doing that. It's secured all the way around. It goes up underneath, like I said. We're coming in here, and what I'm going to do now is, like I said, I want to work my way back to where are the end of the line, the finish line. We work to where we're going, not away from. And so what I'm going to do is in figuring out where to cut this off. The gauge is going to be down there. I still have to cut this. I still have to put my ends on there. So I want to leave a little bit of extra. So I'm going to go just, you know, about to right there, and I'm going to cut that off with my cutters. And now we've got a little bit of extra right there, so we can do what we got to do. If I ever have to pull the gauge out, I can pull it out the front, have access to work. If the ends become damaged or whatever, I've got a little bit of leeway there. So that's what we're doing. Now, one thing I wanted to point out, and I left some of these on here on purpose just because I'm a stickler when it comes to attention to detail. But when you guys are doing stuff like this, you know, use the zip ties. You know, attention to detail, aesthetics are very important. You know what I mean? So attention to detail is important when you're doing this stuff, because what I like to do is I want this to look as factory as possible. I want you to pop this seat up and not know that I ran that wire there. I want it to look like just as if Yamaha did it. And one thing that Yamaha would never do, and something that nobody should do, is when you're going through all the trouble to run this, you take your time, you run the wire, you do the connections and all that stuff. Don't be one of those douchebags that does all this and then leaves crap like this, because you just erased all the hard work you did. So finish your job, do it right, cut these off, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to cut those off, and you're supposed to make this look factory, because attention to detail is important. If this was some type of, this is obviously isn't a show golf cart by any means, but if we were making some custom cart and I had a customer and I was charging them $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to make this cart, and I did stuff like that, that would be the stuff that the customer is going to notice, and they're going to make note of that. And that's what sets apart someone that's a hack and someone that does it the proper way. So just little things. Obviously this is just my opinion, you know, I'm not anybody, but I do know what I'm talking about, and I've been doing this a long time. And that's just a little thing that will set you apart, set you aside from the average person that's just doing this stuff for theirself. If you're trying to be a business and you're trying to do custom golf carts, if you're trying to work on hot rods, if you're trying to work on side-by-sides or ATVs, whatever your line of profession is, whether it be for hobby or for pay, things like that, proper routing of wires, using proper components and stuff like that is what's going to set you aside or set you apart from the average guy. And that's what you want. You want to set yourself apart from all those other people. You want to be at the top of that list, and you want to be the guy that when somebody calls and says, hey, who do you use to do whatever, you want your name to be the first name brought up. So just little things like that, and that will also make it easier for diagnosing, for repairs, for whatever it might be down the road. So a little bit of setup and, you know, organization will go a long way down the road. So now that we've got all this ran, we're not going to go ahead and we've got to do our ends on here, and then we're going to go ahead and get our stencil out. We're going to get our hole, and then we're pretty much getting close to having this done. But so what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put my ends on the other part of this wire, and then we'll do that stencil, and we'll cut this gauge in. Alright, so what we did now is we went ahead and I used my stencil. I put it the mark here on the panel like I said I was going to, and what I'm going to use to cut this hole is I have a little air, you know, like a jigsaw, whatever you want to call it, a little pneumatic saw, and just a Harbor Freight metal saw that I use, and this thing's great for doing this type of stuff. But what I do is drill 2 holes, and you know, with that being a blade, rather than trying to make rounded cuts, I just do straight cuts. So I drill holes on opposite sides like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 1 hole. I'm going to do a cut from here to here, and I'm going to do a cut from here down, and then I'm going to do one from here, and from here up, and then that will give us a perfect square. Because if you try to use that and you try to do the corners, then you've got a lot more cuts and stuff like that. It just tends to be a little bit more problematic. So we're going to go ahead and cut that. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to leave the camera going for you to to see or not. So let's give it a shot. So as you can see, that works really well. That's real fast. Now with doing a stencil, obviously I cut a little bit inside the line that I made. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean that up with the razor blade, and I'm going to kind of get off that excess a little bit, and I'm going to clean up these corners a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do a test fit with our gauge. So I went ahead and I got my my razor knife, and like I said, I just kind of cleaned this up a little bit. I had to kind of open it up a tiny bit because, like I said, I kind of, in the making the video, I was kind of rushing, so I didn't take my time, and I should have cut on the outside of that line, not on the inside, which just made more work for me. That's the drawback on these saws, is they're kind of off or full blast, so they cut really fast, and it's hard to be really precise with small stuff unless you really take your time. So with that being said, just if you're going to use the saw like that, take your time, lay it out like I did, and just you're going to want to cut on the outside of that stenciled line that you put. So now that we've got the opening all cleaned up, we can go ahead, install the gauge. It looks nice. I mean, to the average person, the unknowing, I mean, that looks factory. And it comes with screws. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put a couple screws in there, and that will prevent that from ever coming loose or popping out or whatever. Now, one thing I had to change on this, because of this particular gauge, other ones might be different, is on the back, I'm going to pull this off. You have a minus, you have a plus, and then you have a C. And that C stands for constant. So what you need to do, if you're going to do it in the application the way I'm doing it, where this gauge is on all the time, you're going to have your negative, you're going to have your positive, and then essentially you need to go from the positive down. You need to jumper these two together, and I'll show you how I did it. What I did was, since I already had the one on there, I've still got my negative, I've got my positive, and I split those two together, so then that way when we wire these all together, and we'll go ahead and we'll do this on the video, I feed it through. And this is the other reason why I like using a little bit of extra wire, because now we can do this on the outside and have plenty of room and not have any trouble. So we've got black to negative, and then these two, since they're split, it doesn't matter which goes to which. You just put, as long as they're both on the positive or on the red. Gauge is lighting up, and we need to charge. This thing hasn't been driven in a while, but that's the benefits of having one of these. Like right now I know I have a little bit over a half a charged battery. So that's it. That is the steps involved in adding a battery indicator, or status of charge status, whatever you want to call it. It's it's kind of one of those, people call them different things. Yeah, I'm gonna just call it a battery gauge or a battery indicator, but that's what you do. And now if you were having one of these and you're not doing a stereo, then your next step is going to be popping that back on. Don't forget your torque screw. That first screw that we took out is going to go back into here. Now I'm going to be doing a radio, but I'm not doing that today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this back on. We're going to screw this down. You've got a couple clips. I'm going to make sure those all snap in, and that's laying flat. Put your screw in there, and it's done. We just installed a 48 volt battery indicator. So like I say always at the end of my videos, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you have any suggestions or any tips or anything that you want me to do or anything like that. Please feel free to comment below. And we're going to be doing on our next video, our next upgrade on this is going to be the steering wheel and the steering column upgrade. So check back for that. Turn on your notifications, and that's going to be coming up here real quick. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon, guys and girls.